On this special episode of Supercars Talk, I look back at the top 5 HRT drivers of all time. This was an interesting list to compile. When you think about it, you're like, oh, there's going to be so many to try and enter into this list. And I found the top 4 easy. Getting them in an order, maybe a little bit more difficult, but then that 5th position was really hard to determine. When you think of all the drivers I've had over the years, I would have thought that you would have been falling over yourself to list guys. But these are the 4 that just missed out on this 5th position. I'll explain why the guy in 5th got the position. But the nearly men were Thomas Mazera, Chaz Mostert, Greg Murphy and Alan Grice. They just missed out, but I'll explain why. Now in 5th position, we've got Percy. He raced for the team from 1989 to 1993. Probably not a name that most of the newer fans would know. He was definitely a big name kind of in the 80s, early 90s. Wynn was entrusted by Tom Walkinshaw to essentially set up the team in 1990. In the previous couple of years, it had basically been run by out of Perkins Engineering. Larry had been kind of running the team for Tom here. Won't get into that too much right now. But yeah, Wynn basically, he was an Englishman who moved over to Australia to run the team for 1990. It was a bit of a mess. Results weren't spectacular all the way through, but Wynn was very instrumental in what ended up being the team's first win, and of course it was on the biggest stage of the year at Bathurst. Wynn had previously raced with Alan Grice at Bathurst and he kind of put his foot down. Tom wasn't interested in having Alan Grice in the team, but Wynn put his foot down and got Alan Grice on board for Bathurst, which came in very handy because Wynn had a bit of a shoulder injury just before Bathurst, and Alan had to do most of the heavy lifting that day, and of course while all the turbo cars around them kind of had issues during the day, they plodded along and ended up winning the race. So Wynn, although yes, he won a Bathurst there, didn't really figure at all in the championship. I think his best result was he might have got one podium or like a 4th position or something like that. The championship results weren't there, but he essentially was the man who set up the team that became the juggernaut it was in the end. So that's where he kind of gets ahead of some of the other guys on the list. In 4th position, we have got the man himself, Peter Brock. It's funny, his results over the years, although not the best on this list, weren't bad with the team. His championship results were 3rd, 4th and 6th. He did only take out 3 round wins over his time with the team, but he'll probably be remembered as he was the first real big name that the team signed. He got them into that, where I suppose where the Red Army kind of started, although they were blue back in those days. But you got a lot of fans, I suppose, that were Peter Brock people that came to the team and continued to follow them on from there. He was the one who was instrumental in bringing the mobile money to the team, a sponsor that is still with them now on another long-term deal. He was the one who brought in that big money, brought the big name, the big focus to the team, and obviously as well, kind of it gave them, I suppose, the confidence to sign a young driver like Craig Lowndes. He did train Craig up, gave him driving tips, all the media stuff, where Craig is so good. Brock just brought that kind of, making it the big team that it did become. So although, his results definitely weren't the best on this list, I suppose it's a bit like Percy. It's what he brought overall to the team rather than just a results-based thing. In third position, it is Garth Tander, who was with the team from 2008 to 2016. And although Garth's time at HRT, kind of like his long-time teammate, James Courtney, who didn't actually make this list, it was basically a case of what if for Garth Tander. Championship results peaked over the first 2 years being with the team. He finished third each time. And he did also get beaten in that second year with the team by his teammate Will Davison. But he did spend his whole time with the team in the top 10 of the championship. Although the later years it was more to the back half of the top 10, but that's a score sheet that even Mark Skaife doesn't have, who is obviously higher in this list than Garth Tander. You can probably sum up Garth's time at HRT kind of in that the last year of being with the team. He was in that haunted chassis that they kept, don't talk bad about it, because we won't be able to sell it to anyone. Anyway, as soon as he got a new car for Sydney, he was back in the top 10, where his results were, kind of nowhere for the rest of the year. He took out Sandown with Warren Luff. Not the most convincing win, but they were really, really strong. And obviously then they had that blown off guard towards the end of the race, which they did hold off one of the AAA cars. I can't remember which one it was at the time. Then I think it was actually the day after Sandown that he'd won, he was told that he wouldn't be back with HRT the next year. And then he went on, and realistically, he was in the box seat to win Bathurst until that incident with Whincup and McLaughlin, where Tander got, collateral damage with Whincup taking them both out. He was on. He was in the box seat for that win. They were looking really good to go back to back with the endurance races. His final round with the team, he was second in both races there at Sydney. Whatever equipment you gave him, basically he got the best out of it, and just that drive is what gets him on the list. And of course, he did win Bathurst for the team in 2009 and 2011, which is, that's not a bad result card in anybody's books. Now, I think it's pretty obvious the two drivers who topped this list. So without further ado, in second position, and you're then going to be pretty straightforward at who gets first. Second position is the one and only Craig Lowndes. He was with the team from 1994 to 2000. He started off as a test driver with the team, which that does not happen these days. So when his debut came along, obviously he had a lot of miles under his belt with the team. His big break came in at Sandown in 94. Rickard Rydell was signed for the endurance races alongside Brad Jones, but he couldn't make it out for Sandown, so Lowndesy got the gig and was kind of, don't bother coming for Bathurst, then, Lowndes can do the job. Of course, then he got put into the stratosphere of folklore then after making that last late race pass against John Bowe. Ultimately, they didn't win the race, but that, making that pass kind of, really put him in everybody's eyes. He did have to sit out the championship in 95, but was back for the endurance races with Greg Murphy, and he did put the car on pole for both races. Ultimately, the results weren't there, but it did mean that Mazira got shuffled out of the Team 496 and Craig made his championship debut, and off he went and took out the series, took out Sandown and took out Bathurst. We had the gap year in 97 where he did his European thing with Dr. Helmut Marko. Didn't end up well, but he did make a triumphant return. Came back to partner Murphy at Sandown, which they won. Bathurst didn't go so well, but then he was back in the big seat for the next 3 years, taking out the championship in 98 and 99. Ultimately, he was beaten by Skaife in his final year with the team in 2000. Had a bit of a falling out with management as well during that year, and shifted to Ford for 2001. But yeah, if you look back at his championship results with the team, he finished first, and third. It took out 49 championship wins from 126 starts, or he won 39% of his races with HRT. That is an unbelievable record. Now, the man who ends up number one on this list, of course, is Mr. Mark Skaife. He probably beat out Lowndes, I suppose, just because of his longevity with the team from 1997 to 2008, and a bit like Percy earlier, he did end up running the team. Let's not get into that whole running thing, because that was also probably where we saw a bit of a decline in his and the team's results. But initially, they still did pretty well with him running the team, and once he was out the door, I suppose they quickly kind of jumped back in, and then I suppose you could say the results were even worse than shortly after he left. But Skaife, he did join the team in 1997 to partner Peter Brock on his farewell enduro campaign. He did all that he could and put the car on pole for both races. Ultimately, the results weren't there due to issues, but yeah, they could have easily won both races. That ultimately gave Skaife, his that ultimately led to Skaife getting the full-time gig with the team for 98 onwards, and his championship results for the next 6 years, very, very impressive. Third, first, and third. As I said, it did taper off a bit. He had then following on from that, the highlight was 5th in 05, and the low was 16th in 2006. Yeah, there was a lot going on with him running the team and that, but yeah, he was pretty special. We can't forget also, he did win Bathurst in 01, 02 and 05, and with Todd Kelly, he did take out the Sandown 500 in 2003. Prefer to look at, that earlier HRT when you're just looking results-wise, but he was a massive part of the history, and, maybe if Tom didn't have the whole arrows going down thing, and Skaife, kind of getting lumped with running the team, I suppose. Who knows where we might be looking back at him, without question being the greatest statistically, rather than Jamie Whincup having, that mantle, because Skaife could have quite gone on and won a few more championships in that time. So that's why he gets my number one position. Down in the comments, let me know if you agree or disagree. I will be doing more teams, the top 5 drivers for different teams as well over the coming years. I just thought this was a timely time to have a bit of a look at it with the announcement that Walkinshaw is going to Ford next year. So it is a big changing of the guard for the second longest team in Supercars now. So until next time, I'm still Dave, and I'll catch you later.